Thursday on the briefing, an LA County judge ruled that teacher tenure laws are a form of discrimination against the poor. Children in impoverished situations are stuck in schools with inferior teachers. The court recognizes the right children have to a good education and how tenure removes that right. Teachers in California can get tenure after only 2 or 3 years, and when they are tenured, they are almost impossible to fire. The whining of the unions is falling on deaf ears as both parties recognize that this is detrimental to kids. It costs $250,000 to $400,000 to remove a teacher with tenure. Expect this one to make its way to the Supreme Court. The Washington Times reports that a Colorado baker who refused to make cakes for homosexual marriages has been forced to serve gay couples against his conscience, but must also take sensitivity and anti-discriminatory training. The thought police are busy here in America. Behavioral change is not enough. You must also change your mind. In an effort to inflate its GDP and make its economy look healthy, Italy will be adding the black market and organized crime figures to its numbers, everything from prostitution and gun running to inflate its numbers by almost 2%. Of course, this manipulation will only cause its European neighbors to disregard its reporting. However, the UK and Ireland are considering the same measures, estimating it can add up to $9 billion to its GDP, keeping up within the EU's prescribed levels. If this seems insane to you, you are a rational person. Finally, on the Friday edition of the briefing, we get a view of the future after the homosexual revolution from the Washington Post. It reports that homosexual candidates may not necessarily receive the majority of the LGBTQ vote, which accounts for 10% of the vote there. The homosexuals recognize that no matter which liberal is in the mayor's office, they will pass anything on the homosexual agenda, even with a homosexual on the ballot. The Southern Baptist Convention met in Baltimore this weekend. They signed a resolution stating biblical understanding of gender roles and the issue of the transsexual revolution. It states that God has created humans, male and female, and that gender designation is part of God's goodness in creation, not something merely imposed upon us arbitrarily. The SBC called for a gospel-driven, passionate ministry toward those who struggle with this sin, recognizing that compassion and truth are never at odds, but rightly understood are exactly the same. Summer is the season for denominational meetings, and the General Assembly of the PCUSA, a liberal Presbyterian church, will be meeting in Detroit this week and voting on the normalization of same-sex marriages in the church. No reason to expect this one won't pass. The PCUSA has been circling the drain theologically for years now. Hundreds of United Methodist pastors have signed a resolution to avoid a schism over homosexuality. They have sat out this debate up until now, but are offering individual congregations the autonomy to decide this issue locally. But the UMC affirms in its official statement of state that homosexuality is incompatible with the clear teaching of Scripture. So this schism they are trying to avoid is likely upon them already. The UMC is a global denomination, and by 2016, their next scheduled meeting, the United States churches will be in the minority, and it's unlikely that the more conservative nations would pass such a measure, so they are clearly trying to bypass the clear doctrine and discipline of its denomination. And this ends this week's edition of The Briefing. For more information on these stories, go to albertmoeller.com.